Everything's crappy. Everything sucks. There are jerkwaters everywhere. Everything makes you oh so mad. It's beyond what you can bear. People fight people on wearing masks. It's stupid. Yes, it's true. They want to talk from the bully pulpit. But here's what you must do. Draw a smile on a paper plate and slap it right onto your face. Especially when things aren't going
listening to Cantus Firmus. I'm Cody Cook. I'm talking with Andy Merrill. I've actually been talking with Andy Merrill for the last 15 minutes about puppets, I think.
That was
and pretty close. Andy Merrill's the voice artist known for playing Brak on Space Ghost Coast to Coast, Cartoon Planet, and The Brak Show. He's also known for providing the voice of Oglethorpe the Plutonian in Aqua Teen Hunger Force, as well as his voice work in Adventure Time and Gravity Falls. So, Andy, thanks for taking the time to be here.
You can barely hear me in Gravity Falls. I'm in 3 episodes, and you can just I don't even hear myself in Gravity Falls, but you know, I get the residuals. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
well, and I was looking on IMDb because there's a show called the Marvelous World of Gumball or something, and there's a dad character on there who's definitely
Gumball. Yeah, Dad sounds a lot like Brak, and I always wanted to do, when I was writing promos, when I was in the on-air department, I always wanted to do little shorts that were a conversation between Richard and Brak, and just have them talk on the phone and think that they're talking to a mirror or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was never offended by that. I thought Richard was funny.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Well, I remember when I first heard him,
I never thought he stole my voice. I always thought that was cool, you know. I don't believe that he designed his voice, you know, on Brak, but you know, you never know.
Well, your sketch idea makes me think Gilbert Gottfried has a bit about Tony Curtis and Gavin MacLeod meeting out somewhere, and it's like, "Hi, Tony. Hi, Gavin. How are you? I'm fine, and you?" Anyway,
I did stand up, and I did a joke about the different different impressionists when I was young. And Fred Travelina would always do like stupid situations. So I set it up that Kirk Douglas owned a pharmacy, and Frank Sinatra went in to get his angina medication.
Yeah, I heard it, and it's always one of those. I think it would go a little something like this, and it's like, and it's amazing too because most of the impressionists were not like funny. They did good impressions, but they weren't necessarily like funny people.
No, they were like, "Hey, I can do this voice," and everybody's like, "Oh, yay, you're Rich Little." Yeah. But you know,
he does kind of sound like
I don't do really good. I don't do good impressions. But I did that same night I performed. I was nervous because I performed a little Mickey and Goofy thing, and I found out that Bill Farmer, the voice of Goofy, was there to also perform. So he was in the audience. So I kind of beat myself up a little. But I did it, you know. It was I called the skit Mundane Conversation. It was Mickey and Goofy coming in from the grocery store. And the way Goofy laughs, he kind of like sucks in air. And so I just had him like, I just had the premise that he did that because he had acid reflux. So I did the whole thing, and Goofy's in pain, and Mickey's running around. We gotta go to CVS. Just like a stupid conversation. And then Goofy says, "Walgreens. Oh, you know what? Walgreens is closer. They also have Chocodiles. Do you want some more Chocodiles? I can't eat Chocodiles. I'm a dog." So
I do. I remember. I heard that. I think that's on YouTube.
Yeah, it's
yeah. Goofy's hard to do. I can do Mickey kind of, but I've never quite gotten. Goofy has this such a. It is like the weird breathing.
That at the end of his laughs. Yeah.
Okay, so man, I don't want to keep you too long. I'm sorry. I love all these sidetracks.
We're having fun.
So fun.
Don't worry about it.
It's good.
Stop beating yourself up.
Daily affirmations from Brak.
Hello. No.
Don't touch the hot pot because you will burn your hand.
I just made that up. That is comedy.
That's good. Yeah. And
I had to put it in here. Hold on a second. I covered it with shoot, never mind. I do have the puppet in here, but he's covered in IKEA cushions right now. So
yeah,
and I don't want to waste your time.
No, it's good. Well, and if you ever, if I ever ask you a question that you have to distance yourself from emotionally, you could use the Brak Puppet. Just have Brak answer the question.
Where did the man touch you?
Right here in the armpit.
Okay, so it's hard to find too much background information about you. There's more than I expected to find. I found that you started at CNN.
Okay, that crappy Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
Says my middle name is Robert. Somebody wrote that on. I don't know. I've been trying for years to just take it off.
Yeah.
Just because it annoys me that
you want to set the record straight today?
I can't go and change my own Wikipedia page. But yeah.
Let's set the record straight today and we'll see if it gets resolved. What's your middle name?
I'm not gonna say.
Okay, but it does say
sorry.
It's okay. It does say you started at CNN before you went to Cartoon Network.
I got into CNN while I was in Tulsa, working with my friend on. We just did stupid camera work at Willie George Ministries in Tulsa, and they did the Gospel Bill show, which is on. I don't know if it's still on TBN or Christian television, but I worked camera a couple times on the Gospel Bill show. So then, I had put in my application to CNN at that time. So they hired me as an intern.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and moved to Atlanta. And was it that day? No, I did an internship earlier, and I don't remember anything about that. I just did it for sports. And I couldn't, they were like, hey, do the highlights of this basketball game. I'm like, they're kind of all highlights to me. So I was not good at that. But later, I got hired by CNN in 1990. Yeah, 91. Yeah, somewhere. 91. And I worked there like exactly a year before I went to Cartoon Network. It was giving scripts to the anchors. It was pointing them to the camera. It was going, and then you graduate up to what's called playback, which I'm sure they don't have anymore, which is like 5 tape machines in one room, and you're juggling tapes because they have to go on the air. And that's really stressful. And then I worked overnights in feeds where I would just, take in normal stories and stuff and put them to tape and B-roll so they could edit the things. The most I don't want to say exciting because it was a hurricane, but the most exciting it got in feeds was during, I think it was Hurricane Andrew, and so you're talking to the reporters out in the field and they're saying, well, we're going to go to shelter now, and then you just kind of wait, biting your nails for like 45 minutes, and they call back and we're okay.
Yeah. But they never asked you to say this is CNN as Brak.
This is CNN. Stupid.
I think they liked James Earl Jones's version better.
Yeah,
is what I think.
Maybe, yeah.
Mine sounded too babyish.
Too babyish. I think they're equal in gravitas, but so how'd you end up at Cartoon Network then? So you start at CNN, you're Ringleader.
I saw that Ted Turner had bought the Hanna-Barbera library, and you don't just buy a cartoon library without doing something with it. So, I kind of knew something was coming. And then on the job board at CNN, they started posting. So I thought the only thing I could do at the time was programming. So I went out for that job, and I interviewed with two people. I interviewed with Dick Connell, who's not there anymore. I don't know where he is now, but I interviewed with Lazo. And first of all, before the interview, they gave me this test. It was a written test. It was a cartoon test. It was like 3 or 4 pages long, and it had like multiple choice, matching, fill in the blank, and it was all like, I think they thought matching was going to be hard because it was like match the studio with the cartoon character, and there were more cartoon characters than studios. So the characters that didn't have a studio, I would just write the studio name next to it because I just knew all that stuff for some stupid reason. But and it had an essay question. Tell the difference between a Warner Brothers and a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, and I kind of went a little deep on it, but I got 100%, and so I got into interview. Dick and Mike were impressed with my interview that they had me go in and meet Betty Cohen, who's the president at the time of the network. And so I talked with her. It was a delightful little chat. I made her laugh, and that's how I got in. I worked in programming. I worked with Khaki Jones, who's over at Disney Animation now. She programmed the half-hour shows, like Flintstones and Jetsons and all that stuff. I programmed all the shorts. So I programmed all the Huckleberry Hound, all the Hanna-Barbera shorts, all the Bugs Bunny stuff, and Popeye and all that. So, within a few months of just scheduling, I started becoming kind of like the resident cartoon guru. So if anybody says, "Where does Elmer Fudd say this?" and I would say, "Oh, it's in this cartoon." Because I used to be able to tell you the name of a Warner Brothers cartoon just by listening to the opening segment, and I could tell you the name and who directed it.
Wow.
I got that intimate with the Warner Brothers cartoon, so
yeah,
it was fun. I liked it. It was a lot different from. There was no stress. It wasn't like CNN. And
they didn't come in and be like, "We need that Huckleberry Hound episode stat."
Yeah. Plus, I made more money, so that was great. So that's how I started.
Yeah. And so somehow you end up you go from CNN to programming Cartoon Network to being involved in Space Ghost. What exactly happened there? Because it seemed like it was was cool, but it almost sort of seemed like friends goofing around a little bit at first. Is that kind of fair?
It wasn't kind of like that. At the beginning of the network, we would pick a month, and each month we would dedicate to one character. I think right before Space Ghost, it was Morocco Mole from what's his name? Something Squirrel.
Secret Squirrel? Or?
Secret Squirrel. Yeah, it was Secret Squirrel. So, we would showcase those cartoons and do special little marathons and stuff. I can't believe I forgot Secret Squirrel. My brain. So April was coming along, and they had appointed Space Ghost to be part of April. So we were thinking of, marathon ideas or stunts or whatever. And because we had done a Mother's Day stunt where we celebrated cartoon mothers, and it was Kaki's idea to we showed 3 cartoons in that marathon. It was Flintstones, Jetsons, and Johnny Quest. So it was a tribute to Wilma and Betty, Jane, and Race Bannon. So it was funny. Anyway, so yeah, it came from one of those meetings of trying to figure out what to do with Space Ghost. And then we were kind of just joking around. Kaki said, we were joking around with like titles of marathons and stuff. And Kaki said, Space Ghost Coast to Coast. And then we were like, huh. Lazo was like, it'd be funny if we did like a talk show featuring an animated character. And I was like, yeah, I've heard of that before. There was an animated bear before Space Ghost. So we weren't the first animated talk show, but I don't know what happened to that show, and I don't remember the name of it. But in college, I was a broadcast major, and at Asbury, they teach you a lot of production. And so you're just ready to start going in the field. So I knew how to edit. It was no big thing. I kind of know now, but back then it was tape to tape. So I would I took an episode of Space Ghost, and I just would do fractions of a second together to keep his mouth open or keep his mouth closed. And so I, brought Kaki in the room with me and recorded this stupid, tomorrow we're going to talk to Don Knotts. And so that was basically the pilot. I took, CNN had a show called Showbiz Tonight, and I took just a random interview. It was with Denzel Washington. And I kind of faked that Space Ghost was talking to Denzel. Yeah. And that's what sold the show. So, we all kind of, I would say equally the show was created by Kaki and Lazo and I. Don't fall for any other what anybody else tells you. But so it went from there. We started having meetings on how to do it. We had Clay Croker, who did a lot of animation at Crawford Post in Atlanta, and without him, we wouldn't have had the sets and backgrounds and stuff. And we took the animation actually from the cartoon, most of it, and we would rotoscope it out of the cartoon and just place him in. That's why his poses were all weird. Yeah. Like he's sitting like this at the desk.
Yeah. But that actually makes it a lot funnier, though.
It was, and we did a reenactment show where I was Space Ghost, and I dedicated myself to try and do every single pose, and it hurt after a while. But Clay would do extra animation if we needed it. So yeah, and he just happened to be able to do Don Messick and Dawes Butler voices. Those are the main main Hanna-Barbera guys. So Don Messick did Zorak, so he could do a spot-on Zorak. Because at first we weren't going to worry about the voices. We had tried to get Gary Owen to do Space Ghost, but it wasn't that he was a jerk. He was a really nice guy. It's just he couldn't read the scripts the way we wanted him to read it. He wanted to be the true space ghost, which was kind of heroic and stuff, and we wanted him to lighten up and be funny. So yeah.
And so we talked about the clipping with like Denzel or whatever. Maybe also think of like the Weird Al, like the Al TV segments where he would like make it look like he was interviewing, Prince or whatever.
It was, I didn't think about that when we put it together, but yeah, it's similar to that. I used to love Al TV. I was always glued, try and record every single version. I think I have one. I recorded one and I digitized it, so it's on my computer somewhere. But it's one of the later episodes. So anyway, I had
a tape of the one. I think it was after he did Poodle Hat. Maybe he's got like this interview with Avril Lavigne, where he's making fun of how she talks. It's an Eminem interview. I like burn the crap out of that tape, but I guess I bring that up because I'm wondering when I watch Space Ghost, I always wonder if the questions that are being asked the celebrity guests, are the questions that Space Ghost is asking, or
initially it was. Initially it was, because you hear him in the opening in the first episodes. You just hear him say, "Are you getting enough oxygen?" Why, blah. And it was just the same questions we would ask people. And so after a while, it just kind of didn't work. So we really started making things, taking things out of context in the season where Warner Brothers wanted us to do 28 episodes. But we were taking it out of context before, and at first we had thought, is it ethical, or are they going to sue us or something? But after a while it was like, we don't care, this is funnier. And so we instead of originally we wrote the show around the interview, and after a while we wrote the interview into the show. And it was a better show for that, because we actually were writing an actual show with a plot and all that stuff, and not just a talk show. So
I always wonder about the Bill Shatner interview, because Shatner's supposedly this kind of big ego guy or whatever, and there's that line Shatner? Where you did, because there's a line where Space Ghost says, "Hey, remember that episode of Space Track where your show got canceled?"
I think we weren't working on that. I think that was the digital side. They did some Space Ghost without our permission, I guess. But they still are there, But yeah, we never interviewed Shatner. We did get Mark Hamill and made fun of that whole thing, and I had to fight. For the joke where Space Ghost says, "Well, if it isn't Duke Fartknocker." we really had to fight for that.
Yeah,
Luke Skytopper.
Well, you got to have your scruples. I mean, you know what I mean. You got to have your integrity and fight for Duke Fartknocker.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's just funny. I mean, why would you not put that in there?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Some people don't like fart jokes.
Well, and when I kind of look back, I mean, there was like this. It's this really kind of this early time in Cartoon Network, and it's even like pre-Adult Swim, and it kind of just translates into Adult Swim over time. But it almost like feels like the early days of like the American Revolution or the Yippies, the Weather Underground, or the Rolling Stones or something, where it's just like, I mean, did you guys have a sense that you were doing something kind of like somewhat historic, or even like revolutionary? It's like just something kind of new.
No, we were just doing what we were doing. Yeah. We didn't think we were groundbreaking or anything like that. And it's weird that people look back at it like that, but. It did eventually morph into Adult Swim, and because the original Adult Swim shows kind of all had that type of humor,
Yeah.
All the stuff we originally made. And Aqua Teen was a spin-off of Space Ghost. There was one episode where they didn't even resemble what Aqua Teen is now. But
yeah, Shake was like, I remember he was like one of them. I think it was one of the Moonanites who did the voice of Shake, right? Wasn't it?
It might have been Matt Malero. It was either Matt Malero or Dave. I hired Dave Willis to be our extra guy to write and produce Cartoon Planet back in the day.
Yeah.
And then Lazo pulled him onto Space Ghost, and he shot up through there. So
yeah, he's a name you see all the time in Adult Swim. And just to clarify, in case anybody doesn't know what Adult Swim is, this is like almost like kind of a Cartoon Network's like Nick at Night. It was like kind of more adult oriented.
Space Ghost was our first original piece cartoon at Cartoon Network. And then we went into the whole, cartoon thing, and we had like contests for animators to make a short, and we would have the kids at home pick their favorite shorts. So that's, where Powerpuff Girls and Dexter and all those classics came from.
Yeah.
Kids Next Door, yeah, that one won almost unanimously. Everybody loved that one.
A documentary recently about Nickelodeon in kind of the heyday, and then as it sort of evolved over time. And sometimes things kind of become a little bit more corporate. Do you feel like Adult Swim or Cartoon Network still sort of have that rebellious spirit a little bit, or does it kind of become a little bit more structured?
No, it's always kind of been structured.
Yeah.
It's just when the company started merging and selling off. Like when we first did Space Ghost, it was just Turner, and the hierarchy was you, Lazo, Betty Cohen, Ted Turner. So you were always like 4 people away from Ted Turner, and he would do all of our company-wide meetings and stuff. So we would see him all the time, and it was just a mom and pop thing. And Cartoon Planet, especially done during that time, we didn't go through. We knew the basics, S&P, standards and practices, so we didn't go overboard with it. So we kind of pushed it a little bit, but we never really sent our stuff to S&P, and a lot of the time we didn't even run it past Lazo. We would just produce it and throw it on the air. So that's where Brak kind of rose. It was in Cartoon Planet, and at some point we were airing it at 6:00. I remember at night. So I would stay. I don't know if it was TBS or I think it was on TBS at 6:00, maybe. Or either or. But I would stay and sit in a sound booth. And when they would cue me, I would just do Brak doing the in and outs, saying, "We'll be right back with more Cartoon Planet." And so after a while, I would just go on and I would write scripts and show them to Mike, and he would approve them. But after a while, I was like, I'm not going by these. I would just improvise whatever was coming, just whatever popped in my head. So the problem with that is it was live, so there's no recordings of them unless got them on videotape.
I'm sure somebody did.
I would wish my grandma happy birthday and all this other stuff.
That's awesome.
I would sing it.
Okay, so then,
but it was like I only had 6 seconds each time, so I would have to think fast.
Yeah. And then sort of Brak becomes kind of a breakout star a little bit, or breakout character in Space Ghost, and then gets his own show, and then he got so popular with Cartoon Planet that we started injecting him more into Coast to Coast. Yeah.
When we were taking off Cartoon Planet, we all had to work together to get that ton of episodes out. That was like season 4. We had like 26 episodes we got out that year, when it was just 10 before. So we were like constantly in that room. It was Chip Duffy, Dave Willis, Pete Smith, and I just in that room, just like, it's almost like we were locked in there, like it was a prison. Just like we were the little kids making shoes. That's what it felt like. But we were just cranking out comedy and stuff. So anyway, that was the early days of Space Ghost. But then Warner Brothers bought us, AOL bought them. And so it became a lot more corporate, and there were a lot more people hired and stuff like that. So it became a beast, but it wasn't a beast that we had to be afraid of. We could still like do our own thing. It just had to go through different channels. So
yeah. I remember Harvey Birdman had like an episode about that where it was like the firm was being taken over by AOL Time Warner.
Well, Michael O'Lean did that show, and he's like the president of Adult Swim now. So yeah, I mean, when Lazo retired, they gave it to Michael because naturally, he was the head of on air and marketing, and it just made sense. So yeah, he was my boss for a good long time, and we got along swimmingly. Michael's a good guy. Yeah, Olean's great.
So I might want to maybe transition a little bit because part of what I was interested in talking to you about was I became aware from watching some of your videos that you did kind of leading up to the election. You brought all these like Brak Puppets and different things in. And these kind of funny song numbers and stuff like that, which I'd like to open and close the podcast with a couple of those if you're okay with that. Some of the ones you did on YouTube last year.
Fine. Yeah, it was funny because I did put a smile on a paper plate and slap it right onto your face.
Yeah,
draw a smile. Sorry, and I called my friend John, who kind of represents me musically. And I said, I can give you the full-on recording of that of Dr. Demento once to air it. It's like he was like, "Oh, he's already airing it. He already got it off of YouTube." So I was like, "Well, that's cool."
Yeah. Well, so as I was watching some of these videos you did leading up to last election, and they're so good and they're so funny, and anybody who hasn't seen them needs to watch them. Look you up on YouTube, Andy Merrill, or Instagram.
I think I started having a lot more fun when Christmas rolled around, and I dedicated myself to try and do a Christmas song every day.
Yeah,
with Santa or Brak. But when I brought Brak and Santa together, I just thought it was funny to me, and it was especially funny to me because it made Brak a straight man. Because I made Santa a little too insane. So anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah. Somehow you managed to evoke almost like kind of a Jack Benny quality in Brak, where he'll sort of stop and look at the camera.
That's just how I do puppets. When we would do puppets when I was a kid, and we would do it for our church, people knew what puppet I was working because I would try and be as animated as I could. Everybody else is like, "I'm a puppet," and just sing like that. Yeah. And I would try and invoke a personality into the foam and cloth.
Yeah. So, bringing them to life, as it were. Well, but it was in that process. I think one of your early videos when you started really doing stuff on YouTube last year was the Cup of Jesus song, and
I did that before I started. Yeah, before I started doing the puppets. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's just you and the ukulele, and I was interested, especially in the description, because in the description you'd mentioned that it was kind of an homage to the sort of the indie Christian bands that would perform at your church.
Well, it's funny that I got that song from, you can probably still look it up online. It's called the 365 Project.
Uh-huh.
Somebody posted a stupid song every day for 365 days.
Okay.
And Cup of Jesus was in there somewhere. So I just thought that song was stupid.
Yeah. It's really catchy though. I think I'm a Christian. My wife is kind of more agnostic-ish, I guess, but she finds herself singing it a lot. And I think especially the way your intonations, your pauses. It's funny because it's such an easy song to do and play, and like most of those songs were, and just I don't know if it's just the easiness of the song that makes it memorable or what. Yeah, it's a stupid song. I wanted to do I'm a little weenie.
I'm a little weenie looking for a bun. Such a teeny weeny itty bitty one.
Okay.
Well, wait, you still should. That's actually great. What got me interested though is that kind of, you talking about that background a little bit, and then I think I googled you and found you on, just kind of looked at, see if I could find any information on your Wikipedia related to background or whatever, and saw that you went to Asbury, which was a Methodist university, and so. Right. I was curious about because mostly this is a theology and also kind of culture podcast.
Yeah.
And so I was interested in what your background there was, and you seem like your family is pretty involved in church, obviously, and it seems like you've told some stories that suggest that you were still maybe by the time you went to college you were still a Christian. You were involved in different kind of ministries, doing art and not art. Well, maybe it's art, but I'm trying to think of the term, like puppetry and stuff like that. And so I was curious about that whole background, what that was like. I guess maybe the positives and the negatives, especially looking back, of having a kind of an evangelical, I assume evangelical upbringing.
I wouldn't say there's negatives, except for for 3 years I went to Licking County Christian Academy. And those people are so close-minded and stuff that it was just anyway. So I don't want to say it messed me up, but geez, those people. I grew up in the Methodist Church, United Methodist. My mom was always very charismatic. My dad kind of was, but not so much. But he would still go to like the full gospel businessmen conventions and stuff like that. I grew up in that atmosphere. I went to that school for 3 years. It was like independent fundamental Baptists.
Oh, like King James only?
King James only, and all of the teachers had to come from Bob Jones University.
Oh yeah.
So and the way they don't do it now, but they used to kind of teach through these workbooks called PACEs. And so you would basically do your homework in the workbook, and during tests you would do the test, and then you would go look at the answers and grade your own test.
Yeah.
And
the honor system.
So that wasn't open to cheating at all. Yeah. But yeah, we had to memorize passages in the Bible and all of that. So I'm pretty well versed as far as Christianity is concerned. When I was in Burbank, I still have a friend. He kind of grew up. He grew up more in a Mormon atmosphere, but we were kind of betting each other who could out Jesus one another, who knew more. Yeah. So yeah, we both kind of grew up in that uber religious atmosphere. It wasn't like my parents were strict and all that stuff, and that they were. We were allowed to do whatever we wanted. We could watch whatever TV or movies we wanted. We could, they raised us basically to be responsible, and we were. But it wasn't with, an iron fist. It was, they just, we all just got along. It wasn't like, my mom is such a slave driver, but it was never like that. So I think we grew up pretty happy. So I don't know. Yeah. So I'm not screwed up in the head.
That's good. Well, the fundamentalist Baptist, and I did a research project for a book on politics from like a kind of biblical perspective, and I'd found some of the old fundamentalist Baptists were like very skeptical of politics, and it's interesting. It's changed so much, right?
And now it's like, yeah, they're in bed with all of those guys.
Yeah,
it's like, you can make. Just to make some people and some of their actions acceptable, that's almost partly why I kind of started losing faith, because, these people, are so close-minded and set in their ways, and they believe good things, but they also, promote and believe horrible things. And, they always, talk about how they're going to get into heaven and all this stuff, and I started thinking, I don't want to go to their heaven, because it's gonna, their heaven would be, all white people and and stuff like that, and we don't got to worry about anything anymore. And it's like, I don't want to go to some closed-minded jerk heaven. That would be my hell. So I think that's when I started kind of falling aside, I think.
Yeah. I left, so I had a Southern Baptist, my dad's side of the family was Southern Baptist. So when I was like a little kid, I was, baptized and everything. And they kind of, I think, drove me away in a lot of ways. So then when I back to it, I had this sort of very skeptical attitude toward like tradition and anything people told me. And I feel like that's maybe served me a little bit better when you see the way that so many kids grow up with certain traditions and they aren't very reflective about them. Finally, sometimes it can be really difficult to stay in there once you realize how unhealthy some of those things are.
Oh, yeah, I know. But I don't know. I just don't like... I told my niece and nephews that my philosophy now basically is don't be a douche. So, I just be nice to people. Just respect them. They don't have to believe what you believe. They don't. So it's like, just respect them for what they believe and stuff. I'm working temporarily, kind of like blue collar, and I'm just working with all these Trumpers, and I'm not saying, that was the worst 4 years of my life. I'm just, trying to understand them and get along with them. And I found that has been pretty easy to do. Yeah. And it's just me not being a jerk or a douche, Sure. So yeah, there's the one woman that I worked with is very Christian. She reminds me of my mom, the way she talks. And I told her that I was an agnostic, and because I had let her, talk about the Bible and Jesus the whole night. And I told her how I grew up and all that stuff. So she just, let loose, and I was fine with that. I don't disrespect her for any of that, and I'm cool with it. And when I said I was agnostic, she said, "Oh, well, do you believe in God?" I said, "I don't not believe in God." That's kind of what agnosticism is. So, is there? but no, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's the we can't define it, so why are we interpreting it? I know there are basic rules and principles and stuff to go by, but it gets twisted. Like the word of God gets twisted so much to other people's, belief system and whims and stuff that it drives me crazy.
Well, I think partly what I'm curious about is your journey to agnosticism, because when you talk about some of these bad experiences having an impact, like for me, I kind of almost like segment my these things a little bit, where it's like the way I've sort of separated it for myself, and this maybe has made it so it's been easier for me to maintain my faith, is that you have a claim about there being a creator, which is a philosophical claim, and you have a claim about Jesus rising from the dead, which is a historical claim that has some, import for other issues. And then you have this third thing, which was a problem that Jesus dealt with a lot, which is that sometimes people who are claim to be religious believers are jerks. And then I think what happens for so many is that third thing starts to overshadow the second and first things, even though the third thing can be true and then 1 and 2 can also be true. It starts to make you doubt 1 and 2 a little bit when 3 is such a problem.
The more I talk about my beliefs and stuff, I believe a lot more Christian things than I would even think, if I talk about it enough. But still, there's that there. So I don't understand your question.
Oh.
So I'm going to talk about something. No, you were talking about creation and the historics of Jesus rising from the dead.
Well, the reason I was talking about it was...
I was thinking about when you were talking about creation, my mind went off to, the people believe in evolution. They believe in the Big Bang. They believe in all of that. They believe that the Earth is very old. And you know what? Genesis says that, he created the Earth and everything around in like 6 days and then rested on the 7th. Why do those days have to be 24 hours? Mm-hmm. I mean, they can be, I don't know. I believe that they can be God days. Let there be light. That sounds like a Big Bang. So,
Yeah.
I think it can all fit together. I don't know why people are so hung up on this miracle of just this complex, universe being built in, 100.
The time thing seems like an odd thing to camp out on. I've known people like pastors or whatever who would say they talk negatively about the Big Bang because they were young Earth creationists, and I'm like, are you telling me that secular scientists are going to come up to you and say the universe began to exist, and you're going to have an issue with that? Like, for decades the Big Bang was treated as a negative thing for secularism, right?
But it's fun. We don't know. Nobody knows. They're finding dinosaur bones, and people are saying that's a hoax. They're just making those bones. But why can't God be the God that says, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to make something better out of this," or I don't know.
Yeah.
But nature has to adapt to whatever is going on around it. Otherwise, we'd all be dead and extinct.
Yeah.
So, everything has had to evolve to live on this planet. So,
yeah, I
don't think evolution is a bad thing. I think it can be part of the creation story, but I'm going to eat some chocolate.
Yeah. Well, I think you still have a notion of a wise creator. I mean, you can, right? I mean, most evolution people who talk about evolution think of it in a secular sense, but
yeah, I mean, I'm not an atheist. Yeah. I'm not like this doesn't happen. Yeah, I mean, you have to believe in something. something started all this.
Yeah.
Someone's looking out for everybody. You know, I don't not believe. So
Yeah.
I just believe that I try and be realistic about what I believe. And who knows, you know? We don't know. But the Bible was put together by a bunch of, you know, like a religious sect of whatever church in the 300s, and they picked and choose what goes in the Bible. So there are probably a lot of extra things that we don't know that they thought were blasphemous back then or something.
Well, never always. I'm always never sure what's worth bringing up and what's not worth bringing up. So the
well, you can bring up whatever. I'm fine.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's like when somebody says something, you think there's a lot of ways I could respond to this. This is one thing I could say, but is that like a rabbit trail, right? So, I mean, I think for me, when there's kind of the Dan Brown argument, right, that the Council of Nicaea in 325 has something to do with picking the canon. When I don't actually think there's any historical evidence for that. It seems to have been kind of more of an organic process. And the argument that they were trying to make was, we're going to, Jesus supposedly chose these apostles to get his message out, so we're going to go with the texts that are apostolic, that we can point back to and say this comes from the apostles, and if it's too late in the game, then we don't take it seriously. So I think that there's a little bit more of something going on there, but you still have this problem, as like you talked about, of the knowledge problem, which is, so even if you say, I think God has inspired something, as wants to tell me something, that doesn't mean you know everything.
Like when people say, the Lord told me today, blah.
Yeah.
I just can't. It's so Old Testament to me. It was like God had to talk to people like Moses and people like that back then, because, how else was he going to communicate? So today it's like, God told me to go to the store and this happened. And God doesn't care about that. God doesn't. It's like, hold on, cancer child. Let me help this woman at the grocery store.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot I don't believe, so I don't know.
Yeah. No,
I think God has his priorities if he's there, and it's not you and your football game. It's not, Lord Jesus, help me find the pantyhose I want and stuff like that. It's
sure
ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And just
go ahead. No, go ahead. I was just going off. Go ahead.
That's okay. You can riff. No, I just to be clear, the point of the part of why I want to be careful what I bring up is because I want to be careful to not because we obviously, whenever you disagree with somebody about something, you share your opinion, it can begin to look like you're trying to here ostensibly to talk about your own personal beliefs and Brak and everything, but really I'm just trying to convert your thing. Like that's not what I'm trying to do.
I don't think that at all.
Good.
And you clearly made that clear before, even talk. So, even if your main intention was Brak and you didn't tell me about what we're talking about now, I think I would still be fine with it, because I don't get offended. I don't, I don't care,
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I'm that way too. I never understand when people get easily upset about things like that, but
I guess I'm too old to give a crap. I don't know.
it seems weird to me that
the number of F's I have to give are going down rapidly.
Yeah, and maybe it's me. Something that's personal about me, but I've never been one of those people who could talk about the weather or baseball scores. I've always found that to be really boring. So I'm always interested in getting people's perspectives on serious things.
Right. I mean, stupid small talk. I don't like that either.
Yeah.
It's like talking to a robot. But
I do wonder. So for you, it seems like for you, the part of what made it, what made faith, which was kind of maybe a more significant part of your upbringing, seemed less interesting with people who maybe who were supposed to be on your side on this thing, but who didn't seem to take it seriously in the way that you thought they should, or that they were focused on the wrong things, or maybe their hearts weren't right. And that seems to be your story. But one thing that's kind of interesting to me is in the entertainment industry, there seems to be definitely more of a secularism as kind of the default. And I wondered if you had any thoughts about that, because my assumption maybe is that it has something to do with being contrarian, has something to do with being an artist, right? That you kind of you're more likely to be a little skeptical of what the status quo is.
I don't know. I think part of it's privacy too. A lot of people hold their beliefs to their chest and just don't want to talk about it, just because they don't want to be judged or whatever. They don't want to seem like like people say, oh look, he thinks he's so great. So no, I don't know. I kind of feel like it's a private thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let just whatever you want to believe, that's fine.
So you feel like that maybe there are more people within your industry that have different religious viewpoints than it would be it's suggested or thought to be? It's kind of just more of a private issue?
I think so. And I think it, most of the time it's maybe a moral issue. But you see Kirstie Alley or those people come out and they just, what do they gain from what they believe in, saying what they believe in? They've kind of ruined their careers by, coming out and backing up unpopular beliefs.
Yeah, it seems like as an actor, you're almost trying to be sympathetic, right? So you want everybody to imagine that they could be in your shoes. And if they sort of watch you and they think, Scott Baio's a Trumper or whatever, then it makes it a little harder to do that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, John Voight, he's done a lot of great work, but you don't want to. You want to disconnect his personal side from his acting, because you don't want to. You shouldn't care,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that platform should be used that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's I lived really close to the Church of Scientology when I was in California, and they were very locked up and tight. But the spokespeople they have, Tom Cruise and the bigger celebrities, when they talk about it, they just look crazy.
Yeah.
So, it depends on what's acceptable and what's not viewpoint wise.
Yeah. Well, you think too about guys like on the other side, like a Ricky Gervais or a Seth MacFarlane, who are very maybe pushy about their atheism, right? And that seems to sometimes hurt their careers a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea either.
Yeah.
It's like I don't believe in cramming your beliefs on people. If it's Christian, if it's Muslim, if it's Jewish, if it's atheism, if anything. And I'm not bundling them all together. I'm just saying, you can, I don't know. I just don't like when I was at the Christian Academy, this was every single chapel service they had ended with a altar call. And I just look around and think, who here isn't saved by now? But one of their things they would say was, they would take people door to door in different neighborhoods and knock on doors and ask those people, if you were to die tonight, where would you go? I want to introduce you to Jesus. It's like, it's like if I brought you around, to my neighbors' houses without them knowing me and say, "Hey, this is Cody," and then they're like, "Who the hell are you?" So,
do you think though? I remember hearing or watching a video from Penn Jillette, who's kind of outspoken atheist, and he talked about people who had come to his magic shows or whatever, and they would bring him leaflets or Bibles or whatever, and he'd been asked, does that offend you or whatever, and he'd say, well, not at all. I mean, these people think they care about me and they care what they think is in my best interest, and if they actually believe that I have this opportunity for this wonderful thing and they want to share it with me, then wouldn't that mean on some level that they cared more about their looking good personally or not being embarrassed than they did about me? And I thought that was an interesting perspective as well. I do think that there's got to be a balance, right? I mean, obviously, if you think something's good for somebody, people talk about masking or being vaccinated. Like that comes from a concern, right? But there's also a way that you can do anything that it becomes totally obnoxious and also ineffective, right?
Well, that. And another thing that they kind of taught us at that school was they believe that, for each soul you save, you get one more present. It's like one more reward in heaven, one more gold brick into your mansion.
Yeah.
So, it's like, then, what? Are you doing it because you care about people, or are you doing it because when you die and go to heaven, you're going to have this big, glorious mansion full of crap because, you led all these people to the Lord? I don't know.
Sure. I got this recumbent bike from leading Bob to Jesus, right?
Yeah, exactly. This box of Oreos came from that little girl who went to the altar.
Yeah, no, and I think for me, like I talked about having this kind of Southern Baptist thing when I was young, and then I spent my teen years as a very aggressive atheist, and I think I feel like in a lot of ways an outsider to Christian culture as it exists in the United States, especially when it comes to politics. But just in general, it's very strange to me. Like there's a lot of things that, like when I sort of became a Christian again, it was really started as an intellectual thing, but then there's all these things like you got to do your devotionals, and I'm like, well, what is the devotional? I didn't read that anywhere when I read the Gospels or anything. What's a devotional?
Yeah.
Right? And there's these things that are just like part of the culture. That you're supposed to accept, like the crappy music. I thought, okay, so I'm a Christian now. Does that mean I have to learn to like?
Holy crap! If I go to a new church, and it's a drum set and guitars on the main stage, I'm like, oh great, we're gonna sing "Our God is an Awesome God" for 45 minutes.
Yeah,
that's what it always seems like. They would do that at Asbury. They would have chapel services and have people get up and lead the song worship. And literally, for the entire 45 minutes, we would sing one song. And it's like, God, you'd think, even like God and his angels in heaven are just going,
yeah,
stop.
God's like, I only have so much time.
I don't want to hear that song anymore. It's like Baby Shark.
So I didn't believe that the lyrics to "Our God is an Awesome God," because I heard like a techno remix when I was an atheist, and I thought this is like a parody, right? Like these aren't the real lyrics to the song. When he says that, the Lord wasn't joking when he kicked him out of Eden. It wasn't for no reason that he shed his blood. His return is very close. You better be believing. That whole thing, he rolls up his sleeves. He ain't just putting on the Ritz. I thought that's not real. Nobody who isn't an actual believer in Jesus wrote those words down sincerely.
If Christmas shoes is real, then that is real.
I do know of.
Have you ever seen the video for Christmas shoes?
I saw the one you did.
No, the real video. It's like done on a VHS camcorder.
Yeah.
It's quality is bad. It's so bad. It's so bad.
I have to say, though, as much as I don't like that song, the Brak rendition was somewhat touching. I remember feeling almost like a tear was welling up inside me.
Well, I wanted to grab you by the heart before I went into Lady Gaga, because that's what makes the Lady Gaga, just going into that Bad Romance just even funnier, I think.
Sure. I've always been, this is completely off topic, I've always been bothered by the grammatical issues with Bad Romance, where she says you and me could write a bad romance when it ought to be you and I could write a bad romance.
I don't think of that. Oh, I know. You know, this is another thing. About the Christian school I went to. Mm. They did not like rock music.
Okay.
And if you were, they would have like a talent competition every year with other Christian schools. And if you had a song that had "ain't" in it, or you dropped the G and put an apostrophe on one of those words, that's not, get that song out of there. You know, that's like rock music. And that was always weird to me. Because aren't you trying to preach to people and help people with these songs, but can't say "ain't"?
Yeah.
It's just weird. I don't know. They were strict about dumb things.
Sure. Well, you talk about the Fundamentalist Baptists. You know why they have such a negative attitude towards sex? It's because it can lead to dancing.
That's good. Yeah, and you have to stay 6 inches apart.
We got to leave room for the Holy Spirit, who's roughly 6 inches in depth.
Yeah. You know, and if you get closer, you have to feel that Holy Spirit going, no.
Yeah. Well, I've kept you for a while, and it's been really awesome to talk to you. I really appreciate you taking time to do this. Is there anything else you want to say? And are you ready to come up and accept Jesus as your Savior? Have I? No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, I am. I totally am. Even though I did multiple times in my teen years, I'm ready to do it again.
This time for real.
You've convinced me. That's another thing I don't understand is if you're trying to convert people,
mm-hmm.
the people that tend to take everything out of context and morph it to their beliefs, they're so close-minded to people. If you want to convert them, then why do you make it so hard? You know, why?
Yeah.
You know, why do you have to condemn these people? Because that's not the way to do it. You're not going to say, you're going to hell. You're doing terrible things and horrible things. It's just, you know, telling people how bad they are and persecuting them and stuff like that. That's not going to get your message across.
Isn't that kind of what pickup artists do, though? Where they talk about you do the dig where you say, like, you know, oh, those shoes don't look cheap at all or whatever. Like you try to like find some way to sort of compliment them.
Yeah.
Like, listen,
I love
not that good.
I love your watch. They say, I love your watch, so they can hold your hand for just a split second. What kind is that?
Yeah.
A Casio. I don't know why you love this watch. Anyway, sorry. That was a tangent.
But no, but yeah, perhaps they're. I mean, I've always wondered about that too, because like I came to faith, like I said, kind of intellectually, like it was certain arguments and data that sort of brought me in, and then like I always thought it was weird when I go to like a church and they'd be like, invite your atheist friends or whatever, and I'd be like, they don't know what they're doing here, like then it's not going to connect with them at all. But then it turns out when you start learning about it, that actually it is what happens. Like I've yet to like really bring somebody in by making a good argument. But if somebody goes to church on the right Sunday and everybody's nice to them, it almost like somehow like it does I don't know. People connect differently than I expect them to. It has to do with wanting to be interested in the group and wanting to be a part of it, feeling like outside but wanting to be in. Like, these people are so nice and whatever. And then then you're willing to kind of pick beliefs.
I remember having friends that would become saved, and they just felt so good about it.
Yeah.
That they just became a different person, and it just seemed to me. And then later they would just fall by the wayside. They would go back to their old ways and stuff. And I think if you're gonna convert people, you also have to nurture them. So it just feels like most of the time it's like, you're saved, go into the world, and there's no help.
I don't know if you're like the Baptist school you went to was like what they call once saved, always saved, but that's their whole thing, right? You got to get them in the door, and then it doesn't matter if they leave the building after that.
Who gives a crap, It was once saved, always saved.
Yeah.
But, if that were the case, golden.
Yeah, it's like signing a cell phone contract with Verizon or something, right? Like, well, you signed the contract.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you don't use the phone.
Be a Buddhist? No. You've got 2 more years here.
This has been just really awesome to be able to talk to you. It's a little bit like, talking to Mel Blanc or something. Anything in conclusion or anything that we didn't talk about that you want to say? Any words of parting words of wisdom? Or?
Well, I hope I've turned everyone away from the Lord. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I don't say profound things unless, did I? No. I don't know. I don't have any parting words. Go unto thine own world. Don't screw it up. Because once you're saved, it's fine.
Actually, I do have one concluding question. And maybe you won't find this cute, but we'll see. Which is, if you were to imagine Brak and Oglethorpe, if they were to have religious viewpoints, what do you think they would connect with?
Well, Oglethorpe, I would think, I kind of made him German. I kind of think he would be very much a strict Protestant.
Yeah, Lutheran.
And I feel like Brak, geez, I don't know.
Do you think he'd be like a Unitarian Universalist? I think Brak might be a Unitarian Universalist just because he's so kind of friendly and open.
Brak would go to England so he could register himself as a Jedi.
Yeah.
Recognized religion over there. I don't have to be a Padawan. I can just go over there and sign a paper. I'm a Jedi.
All right, man. Well, thank you again. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording here and go in peace.
That's a way to sign out. That's a good way. That's a good sign-off phrase. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording here, and then click, it's off. And that's the way it is. I'm going to turn this recording off.
Yeah.
Good night.
So folks I know, they need their morning coffee. They need their morning coffee to help face the day. But all I need is his sweet inspiration in my life to pick me up and get me on my way. Have a cup of Jesus first thing in the morning. Have a cup of Jesus to get the spirit up. Fill me to the rim with the love that pours from him. All the goodness of Jesus is always worth second cup. Some folks I know, they wrestle with the devil. They wrestle with the devil because they haven't seen the light. But someday soon I'll have them come for breakfast, yes I will. And show them how to start their day off right. We'll have a cup of Jesus first thing in the morning. We'll have a cup of Jesus. Keep his spirits up. We'll fill him to the brim with the love that pours from him. All the goodness of Jesus is always worth a second cup. Yeah.
Is that a homemade Brak mask behind you?
Yeah, we're the Halloween year. And I didn't just put it up for you. I've had it, if you go back to my old videos, you can see it.
Well, it looked like the prototype puppet I made.
Oh, yeah?
I made it out of, I don't know. I had this devil puppet, and I thought his skin matched, so I just cut the crap out of him, and I just cut his ears off and cut off all of his hair and just put this mask on him.
Yeah.
I had a prototype Brak Puppet before I had the one I have now, which I made.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm. Do you have like any kind of a background in puppetry, or is it just something you picked up?
Yeah. My family. Well, we heard about this place in San Diego called Puppet Productions, and they actually build puppets, and they would have special different Bible stories, not dramatized, but they were all comical. And they had some really good, like, regular cartoon voices of that day actually doing the voices in these. So they were very professionally done. And, you know, there was, like, Daniel in the Lion's Den and all this stuff. So I kind of learned to improv with puppetry, too, because we didn't just go and do the recorded stuff. We would get up and have like a opening thing where it's like, hey everybody, here's Delbert's coming up, and then the puppet would come up. And my mom was like the person outside talking to the puppets, and after, she used to tell us what we were going to talk about with each show. And after a while, I just said to her, I don't want to know. I just want to go in cold. So I would just, go up, bring him up any way I possibly could. There was the elevator. There's the escalator. And and then I would just say any dumb thing that came to my head. Occasionally, I would accidentally say the word crap, and that would the church wouldn't like that. So.
Okay. Although I believe the Apostle Paul uses the Greek equivalent of crap in one of his epistles. So,
what is that word?
Scubalon.
Dungulus. Scoopalon.
Yeah, the puppetry thing is interesting because I remember doing like I was curious about like the guys who started VeggieTales. And I looked them up, and they were like, "Oh yeah, they met in a puppet class at Christian college." I was like, "That's crazy." Meeting at puppet class. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, a big inspiration for me. We started doing it when the Muppet Show started airing.
Yeah.
So I always idolized Jim Henson. I was always a big fan of even Mr. Rogers, but his puppets were like just little hand puppets. Yeah. But yeah, I was always a big fan of Jim Henson and very inspired by him. And they could just be funny,
Yeah.
They didn't have to worry about, they could just inject funny into like situations. And that's really kind of always how I've written too. I don't like to write joke. I usually write, just a situational thing that's going on, and it's comedy. So,
Sure.
Anyway, I went off subject.
That's okay. Well, and I don't want to keep you too long either, but it's interesting chatting with you. I think puppetry is kind of a lost art nowadays. It seemed like it was everywhere for a while, and it's
there's a show on Nick that uses puppetry, and it's really good. So people, it's hard to say, it's hard to pitch an idea that involves puppets, because people immediately, I don't know why. I don't, to me, it's like the same as animation.
Yeah.
And only if we did a real professional show, we would build sets and all that stuff instead of drawing backgrounds and everything. So
is it that it like
I don't know what the hang up is with puppets. I think too many people think of Jeff Dunham.
Yeah.
Comedy. No.
Yeah.
That's ventriloquism.
Yeah.
Well,
it seems like you kind of have like this, like a sense that puppetry is old fashioned, but then on the other hand, you'll have people who will like intentionally make it dirty. And so you don't really have like this kind of middle of the road sense.
There's no middle. I think that Nick show does well to bridge that gap. All last summer, I taught myself how to make puppets. I got a pattern from somewhere and just started making variations of that pattern, and that's where Brak and Santa Claus, and I did a zombie. I would have him here now, but he's down in the garage because they just delivered them. So that's the interesting part, is that they just delivered them.
Well, and I don't know if it's too personal of a question, but I was interested about the move to Newark. It sounded like maybe you were trying to be closer to your mom, maybe. Am I right about that? Or wrong about that?
Well, I moved to Newark just because the last time I was around my mom, she just didn't get around that well, and she had bone spurs in her back, and she's going to have surgery and all this stuff. So I thought, somebody needs to be there to help her. So that was me.
Aw.
I thought I'd give my brother and sister a break. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome, man.
Took it for the team.
Yeah. Well, and also, nowadays, especially with voice work, you can really literally do it anywhere.
Yeah. I found that out. I did some Aqua Teen stuff in my closet last year over Zoom, which, doing an audio record by yourself just kind of sucks because you don't have any audience. Yeah. But to do it over Zoom with, people there listening and all reacting, it's a lot easier.
Sure.
It was as close to being in the studio as it could be.
Yeah.
So yeah, doing it over Zoom, even though we're on Skype, I guess you could do it on Skype, but anyway.
Yeah, I always wonder, when you hear that people just record it separately, they're never in the same room or whatever. I always think, well, doesn't that hurt the integrity of a Boss Baby, for example?
Yeah, I know. The funny thing is that Adventure Time, most of the time they record together.
Yeah.
But my character in Adventure Time was so whacked out and out there that they recorded me solo just because he just never shut up. He just was always making like robot noises or doing whatever stupid thing. So that would have been distracting to the cast, I think. So
sure.
Yeah.
Shoot, I don't want to keep it too long. Let's go through the stuff if you're cool with it, and then if we have any like diversions that sound interesting or fun, let's just do it.
Okay.
Assuming you get time for it.
Whatever.
Okay. So I'll do my intro thing, and then I'll bring you in. Okay.
We weren't starting. That wasn't even the start.